Hello and welcome to the Libri Labra Book Club. I am joined today with by my husband, John, aka BookTube Hubby, and with Book Club VIP member Tom. And for the month of July, the Libri Labra Book Club read Olga Dies Dreaming by Xochitl Gonzalez. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we jump into the discussion, a quick reminder that if you ever want to join us, on screen in the chat, it is a perk of becoming a patron, and you can do that by going to patreon.com/LibriLabra. And there's a few other perks like helping us select the books. You'll be in a rotation to do that. We have a VIP book club Facebook chat where we talk about the media that we're kind of consuming and things that are happening in the literary world and in the media world, and you'll get priority replies in YouTube comments and a custom bookmark and some behind the scenes stuff on the Patreon as well. So just consider that. Before we jump into spoilers, we will just be talking a little bit about our initial thoughts, and then when we're ready to jump into spoilers, I will let you all know. So if you don't want to be spoiled, that would be a good time to take off. But I would strongly recommend reading this book and then coming back to hear the rest of the discussion. So let's start with you. Or actually, let me talk about why I picked this book. So I have a subscription to Book of the Month, and I get probably like 2 to 3 books every month from Book of the Month. And they also have this thing where they have achievements that you can unlock. And last year for reading, I believe it was 12 books, I got a cool pair of socks. And so there's an achievement this year as well. So I'm doing my best to go through all the Book of the Month books that I have. But they've all been really, really good, and I've really enjoyed them. And so I think this appealed to me because it takes place in New York. I love reading books that take place in New York. They remind me of home. And the main character is Puerto Rican, and even though I'm not Puerto Rican, I can relate to the culture. And so I think that was part of the reason why I purchased it from Book of the Month. It was completely different than what I was expecting, and I'm glad that I'm reading it with people so that I can discuss it, but also kind of upset at myself that I didn't read it sooner because the tone was just completely different than what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting it to be more literary fiction and a little bit just different. I was expecting it to be different, but I really like what it ended up being, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So we'll jump into your initial thoughts, and then we'll go to Tom, and then we'll come back to me.
I actually don't recall reading too much of any synopses of the books that you've requested during voting. So when I saw the word dreaming in the title, I was like, okay, so something about dreams. Let's go that way. But then you had said something, or somebody said something in the chat, and I ended up looking at it. And what solidified me choosing this was the fact that it took place in New York. So I was like, all right, I know she's going to want that. But my initial thoughts it was just I thought I was going into another type of romance maybe, but it ended up being a lot more. So I was also surprised by it.
Tom, how about you?
Like John, I try not to go too far in depth into my research before I start reading, books or picking them. And this one, it's like, oh, this is a pretty cool cover. And so it's like, okay. I'd never heard of the author before, so why not? But then getting into it, I think I told you offline that this is going to be like Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children. If I had known the history, I'd appreciate this novel a hell of a lot more, but I don't. But here we are. So that's my initial thoughts.
I was just expecting the tone to be completely different, and there's a lot in here about gentrification and colonialism and family trauma, and just living in Brooklyn and in New York and being part of the diaspora, and so there was a lot of stuff in here. I don't know if I expected there to be quite as many moving parts, but I still think they were done really well. And I think that's kind of how I feel about it at the most basic level. but we can jump into spoilers now. So that's what we're going to do. We are jumping into spoilers in regards to Olga Dies Dreaming. So again, if you haven't read it yet, go read it and then come back. One of the things that really struck me, because I feel like I've read a lot of books that take place in New York, and it was very clear to me that it was so much more than a writer just dropping in locations and aspects of New York. Like, to me, it brought me back so clearly that I was like, no, this is definitely a native. This is definitely somebody who lives there, who's grown up there, who like understands it, because it touched me in a way that, you know, some books that I've read about New York just hadn't. And I know I was reading some reviews and somebody referred to it as like a love letter to Brooklyn. And I really, really felt that. Like I completely felt that. And while I didn't grow up in the neighborhood that this book takes place, which is Sunset Park, I did live there for a few years as a teenager. And it was just so clear, like so vivid. It looked like you were going to say something. Mm-hmm. So I just think the author did that really, really well. Something that I read in the reviews was that they felt like the letters from the mom were like out of place. Like they felt like they shouldn't have been there. And I think, I mean, I can't imagine this story without those letters. How do you guys feel about that? Did you feel like the letters took you out of the story, added to the story, like just...
Letters gave you a perspective on what mom was thinking at whatever point in time, and those letters were revealed at specific points, like for their reasons. Like I don't think they're like and I don't know how they can say you can put that out of the book and then like kind of that's a lot of necessary information in those letters. So that doesn't make sense to me. But
in a way, I think of it like, excuse me, the Greek chorus is the comments on the action and kind of sets up what's going to happen next. And so I think they were important to the story. And in fact, they have a whole chapter dedicated to where they sit down and they read all the letters and, okay, this is the pattern of manipulation that's been going on all these years. And you don't, and until you like take them all together in one place, you don't notice that, you know, which I thought was good. I mean, so you get to know the way they manipulated it.
Yeah, I thought that was really important, especially with the siblings, because there's siblings in the story, how they were just treated so differently and manipulated in different ways by their mother, and by kind of laying those all out, they were able to see that a bit clearer.
And what times, like which specific time, they were mad at each other for stuff that she said during times where she was in contact with each of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was like she was setting up and she was literally planning things, and that's ridiculous.
I know, like, I'm just curious what your thoughts were in regards to the mom. Like, how did you feel about her? How did you feel about her?
I don't know. I don't really tend to have that many opinions on characters. She was, if there was a movie, I'm sure they would villainize her. So
I guess that's what I'm asking. Was she a villain to you, or was she like an inspirational revolutionary, or was she both?
Yeah, she was all of the. Like she was. Yeah. You're gonna be a villain to somebody's story, no matter how good you do. Somebody's gonna not like you. Like it's ridiculous, but it's I think that's just misguided, right? They actually explained that she wasn't meant to be a mom, that she wasn't like she fell in love with somebody and gave him children, thinking he was going to handle that, and he didn't.
Mm-hmm. Also, too, you know, she said flat out, I don't want the, you know, house and husband and kids and all that sort of story. I want something different. And to her credit, she went out and got it. And then she becomes an anti-hero in the sense that the only thing she knows is the cause, and she doesn't give a damn about the people she uses to get to her end. So that's, in a way, makes her the villain. So yes, you could say she's both.
I guess it's I just feel like I can relate to having a mom who might care a little bit more about herself than she does about her kids, and it's hard. It's hard for them to put that into perspective, and especially like after losing their grandmother. Their grandmother was just such a rock and a foundation for them in regards to growing up and taking care of them. So that feeling of abandonment for both of them, for Prieto and for Olga, throughout the book, like you see it in the way they behave and in the things that they do. Something that I thought was interesting, and I'm not sure what the criteria is here, but I kept trying to look up how this book is classified in regards to the genre. And what I kept seeing was that it was labeled as a contemporary fiction, and I couldn't understand why it's not a historical fiction. Like, do you know if there's, like, what the criteria is for it to be considered historical fiction?
Give it a few years.
Yeah, in a sense, John, I think it's right in the sense that the story itself has to take place in a time previous to, the time the book is published in.
Okay.
Is that the case here? I don't remember. I can't remember what time period it's supposed to be in.
Okay, like I wonder if it does have to be like a certain year. I mean, it's in the past still,
right?
But I don't know if it like has to be over a certain mark. I guess it's kind of interesting.
Maybe also how much of the historical facts or what is fiction in the book, maybe.
I know that has to play a role, but I guess every time something came up that seemed significant in the book, I was like, okay, is this fiction or is this real? And as I Googled things, the majority of the time it was stuff that had actually happened. So I guess I kept going back and forth, like, why is this not historical fiction? But maybe how current it is. Yet. How current it is might actually play a role.
Consider Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead that we read. That was set in the 60s, so that would be historical fiction. I'm not sure that this would be, as a first choice, historical fiction. It refers to history, and history informs the current narrative, but it's not the point of the exercise, in my opinion. Although now that I think about it, she does mention stuff that happened in the past. Like, wasn't there something that she mentioned about like they were just putting up the World Trade Center or something like that at the time? So it could be historical fiction.
It's just not labeled like anywhere that I read it, like not on the Book of the Month website, not on the publisher's website, not on Goodreads, like nowhere did it like refer to it as historical fiction. I only saw it in like one review that somebody said this is historical fiction.
Probably because the setting is so like our own today that they wouldn't be considered, this is history. Like I said, history informs the story, but it's not the story itself. So
maybe the right people haven't read it and made a big deal out of it yet.
That's also possible.
How what was your perception of the characters? Did they feel realistic and fleshed out? Did I think that for the most part everything seemed to be about right. There was like just a couple of things in the book that felt over the top to me. Like I don't know why, but her laundering money for
a Russian mob.
Yeah, like I don't know why that just felt like really.
Just that statement alone was like.
I don't know why that was the thing, but I think to me that felt a little out of left field. I guess being that she was like a wedding planner and stuff like that. I don't know. Did either of you feel?
Well, going back to Colson Whitehead, he's like the father in Colson Whitehead's book. She's bent. She's not exactly crooked, but she's not exactly straight. So
Interesting.
but
I don't know. It's the whole idea of sticking it to the man, to the one above you, and taking advantage of the person who has plenty. It's like that's becoming a big common thing.
I think it's been happening for years, obviously, but like the whole gentrification thing is getting out of control and really frightening. I feel like, especially just recently with like COVID and everything that happened with people getting evicted because they lost their jobs and they couldn't pay for their apartments, and wealthy people just snatching up houses and now people aren't even trying to like resell the house. They're just trying to Airbnb it or make as much money from it as they can. And I really like that towards the end of the book, Mateo kind of admits that he had been buying real estate, but his approach to it and how wealthy he feels, despite not jacking up the rent on people and preserving the community the best way that he knows how. And I think that just that idea, I feel like I think about it often too, like how much money do you really need? And I understand that if someone felt like they earned something, then, kind of what right does anybody else have to take it away from them or anything like that? But at the same time, it's like, is it not just greed at some point? Like, this is money that you're not even going to live long enough to do anything with.
Correct.
That's probably just sitting in a bank. I mean, like at that point, your money's just making more money to make more money to make more money. Like,
like video gamers, like seeing the numbers go up. I mean, no, I'm serious. That's exactly what it is.
And you hear over and over again that the people who tend to be the most generous are the people who have the least, because they understand what it's like to have so little. And
it's important to remember that rich people give from their surplus and poor people give from their need. And so it's the kind of thing where, when people, I gave $1 million. Yeah, but how much more do you have? That's like nothing to you, more than likely. As opposed to an old woman who gives $10, it's like that could be, very, very important. So it's more of a sacrifice.
It's medication. That's gas money.
Yeah. So you can't just look at a number and say, you did this or you did that. So, but to your point, your unbelievable thing was the Russian mob. Mine was the fact that Mateo was all this like rich person. It's like, Jesus Christ, this could come right out of a Jane Austen novel.
that was.
I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
That was convenient, huh?
Yeah. So.
I mean, I don't know. I really liked his character.
Oh, I'm not saying I didn't. I just thought I didn't like his character, but it's like, oh, come on, And it's the kind of thing I wouldn't mention it, but. What was her name? I can't remember her name.
Olga.
Awful. Olga. Yeah, this was in the title. Yeah, thank you. There's a quote which I highlighted, talking about her brother, but I think this is her story in a nutshell. At the end of the day, what did it matter who her brother wanted to fuck? And it's like, this is your story exactly. This is what you're setting the reader up to expect. It's like, this is all it is. I mean, which kind of like. To me, like enforce the mother's point. It's like, okay, you're going to do what society expects. You're going to have the husband, you're going to have the kids, you're going to have the house. And it's like, which I thought was brilliant. I don't know if that was planned or not, but I thought it was brilliant.
Sorry, I just started raining here. I mean, to me, like the whole point of the story was just them getting to a place where they no longer needed the approval of their mother and they could accept themselves as they are, because trying to grow up trying to please this phantom that was never really there. What scene I really, really appreciated was the scene where Prieto was talking to his daughter, where he decided that she was going to be the first one that he was going to tell that he was gay. I thought that exchange was beautiful for like a bunch of different reasons. But you know, even in the news now, with all the things that are happening with the Don't Say Gay bill, with like all this stuff happening in Florida, like there's this emphasis on the children, can't indoctrinate the children. And the children are, you know, they're taught to hate. They're taught to have a bias
than anybody else at this point.
They have to be carefully taught.
And so it's just ironic that so much is happening to protect the children.
Dude, it's all propaganda.
It's just,
in my opinion, it's all ridiculousness.
Hopefully we do not lose internet.
Yeah,
because that storm doesn't sound very good.
Let me go. I'm gonna go check on the AC and use the restroom. I'll be right back.
Okay. Are you able to hear that in my mic? It sounds. I have headphones on. It sounds so loud. The rain.
Wow.
No, I don't hear it.
But
one of the questions I had. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
One of the questions I had while reading the novel is like, what novel would this be if Prieto and Olga changed places? Like, what if Prieto was the wedding planner, or what if she was the representative?
That would be very different, I think.
Yes, and that shows that would be an upending of, you know, societal norms, which, you know, I don't know. I think it would be a much more interesting story that way, but that's me. But I can see why she did it this way. I'm not dogging her for it. I'm just saying.
Well, apparently she's also a wedding planner, the author.
Yeah.
So I think she was trying to kind of write what she knows.
What you know. So maybe she has the Russian moms, and yeah.
So she was writing what she knows. Because I was wondering, I was like, a wedding planner? Like, that sounds interesting, but you know, now that makes sense. But I think when, you know, I don't know if it was a surprise to you. I think John and I agreed that as Olga was telling her brother about Jan, like it became instantly clear, it sounds like they may have had a sexual relationship before anything really.
Oh yeah. That was the plot to that was well lit. Yes.
But I think, you know, at first I was like, why is he so concerned about people finding out? But the people that were blackmailing him, it made a lot of sense, because in Latino culture there is a lot of machismo, and there is.
I was going to say, I understand it's very conservative.
Yeah. So like it's actually really hard for me to imagine the reverse, the way you were saying, because it just would have defied norms in such a strong way that it's hard to imagine.
Right. And the point of the book was to show what the norms were, and I think she did that quite well. So, I had asked Desirai about what if we switched the characters and Prieto was the wedding planner and Olga was the representative? What kind of a novel would we have?
She wouldn't die dreaming. She would have gone the other route. She would have been the other Olga.
No, who knows?
And then that letter bothered me. I mean, a lot of the mom's letters bothered me.
Oh yeah.
But that one in particular really pissed me off.
What really gets what's interesting to me is that she fought so hard against what colonization, what the Americans have done to manipulate whatever situations, but she was one of the biggest manipulators in her family. Like she seemed like a lot of the stuff that she did would have come from the American side of, like the difference of opinions there.
Mm-hmm. But she was also positioned as a character who gets stuff done, too. So, like in her line of work, she has to work with a lot of people and coordinate everything. So I could see that being
True.
A skill.
I mean, having her be the head of everything kind of was, I don't know. To me, it seems like a Hollywood stretch, but you know what I mean? If she was a bigger part, just a small part of the revolution, you know, or whatever, that's one thing. But if she's being the lead and head, I don't know. It's possible, but honestly, I seemed like I had more respect for Karen than I did her sister.
Really?
Like
Because
from
of
a leader perspective. But I mean, they I know they explained the sisters dynamic and how, you know, the young one always looked up to the, but in retrospect, one would have been a better leader than the other. But that's again just opinion.
I thought it was kind of funny the way they talked about Karen.
On Karen?
La Karen.
Because they didn't know that she was a part of everything too?
No, they felt like she was a troublemaker. They felt like
An instigator?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they felt like it was because it was when Blanca met Karen that she got pulled into all the activist stuff. And so they kind of blamed her for some of that.
So yeah, she was more or less an apprentice looking up to her.
She was like the
not
catalyst.
A true sister, but a sister that you. So that was different. I got something. I got my wires crossed then. I do remember that she really wasn't a sister.
Yes.
Okay.
That's Karen, but Blanca did have a sister, which was Lola, I believe.
I don't remember too much information about Lola.
I think Lola was What was her cousin's name? The one that was having the wedding.
Mabel.
Yeah, that was
Mabel.
her. That was her cousin. Yeah.
Or Mabel, if you had the guys audiobook narration. Thank you very much. But anyway.
Speaking of the audiobook, I thought the audiobook was incredible.
Agreed.
The cast.
The female narrator more so for the male than the male narrator. For that reason. But anyway.
But there was like I think there was 2 female narrators.
Okay, I was wondering about that because like when she was doing the mother, it's like this sounds like a little different narrator, but I didn't look it up, unfortunately.
There was somebody else that did the letters, right?
Okay, so there was 3 narrators: Almari Guerra, Armando Riesco, and Inés del Castillo. So there was
okay, that makes sense then. Yeah.
2 women. Yeah, because the mom's voice was different than Olga's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Okay.
But I thought all of it was just really, really good. But there was, despite there being 3 narrators, there was 4 perspectives, because you had the mom, Blanca, you had Olga, you had Prieto, but then also Dick's perspectives.
Oh, we did hear, yeah. Right.
Speaking of Dick,
yes.
like,
okay.
About that.
Yeah. Wow. What a character. I don't know. From like the first chapter, he was gross.
Dick? Yeah.
Like, it was told in third person, so I'm kind of glad there was a little bit of space, because I don't think, right? It was told in third person, wasn't it? Or did they switch it up? I don't know, but I don't know if I wouldn't have wanted to have been closer in his head, because he was just
You did get in Dick's head, didn't they? Some of it was, yeah. No,
I feel like they may have switched it up at some point, but in all his chapters, he was just obsessed with Olga, and he kept trying to make it sound like he loved her, but really he just over-sexualized her. and that seemed like that was all he cared about. But just hearing their exchanges, and just that scene where they were at the party and she helped Christian off the floor and kind of like helped the help.
Designated, like told everybody what to do to alleviate the situation. Got everybody moving.
Right.
She got everybody up and running. She's like, okay, if she did what an event planner would have done when everybody's like, no, everybody keep going,
you're
get
prepared.
together.
She was prepared, and she
helped out.
She helped out. There was an opening. She wanted to reduce his embarrassment, and she did what she needed to
and
do. But the fact that like
apparently it made his embarrassment worse.
No, not his embarrassment. Christian's embarrassment. From dropping the plate. She was trying to help his embarrassment. But the fact that became something for people to be like, oh, are you dating the help? Like,
well, his social class, she is the maid. She has the right color for it, the right ethnicity, and as opposed to someone being the leader, taking charge, and making smoothing the situation over. I think the only one who recognized that was the woman whose party it was. I don't remember, the bride or whatever. But because she said that, I want you to do my daughter's wedding as a result of this. So
I think it's like interesting to reflect, knowing that growing up, like I remember feeling like I wish I was more white. I wish I had blonde hair. I wish I had blue eyes. I wish people looked at me the way they looked at the white girls that I went to school with. Like, I remember feeling like that's what I needed to do. I needed to be more white to be accepted, to assimilate. And, obviously my perspective is different now, but having your eyes open to white supremacy and white privilege, and it's really frustrating because regardless of your closeness to proximity or how much you can assimilate, there's still no real, like, you're always thought of as less for knowing more than one language, or for being willing to jump into a situation where you're qualified and you can help people, because why wouldn't you want to help people?
Right.
It's gross. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to see, to live, to read. Like,
I have just finished Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, which goes into that, what you just mentioned. So you might want to check that out. So,
okay. Yeah, I think the only
I mean, this is what the quote unquote rich set sees, on a daily basis. Their servants are always people of color. And this looks exactly like that situation to them, regardless of, the context, which is unfortunate.
But standing off, watching something happen, like somebody drop plates, and just stand and watch and go, oh my God, I would be so embarrassed if that happened to me.
Right.
And that's it. That's it. It's just that's it. Not even help them figure, straighten up the situation and then blame somebody else for helping. Come on, where's your empathy? That's what's missing, right? Yeah.
Yes, and also the sense that for Dick, aptly named, he sees this as somehow this is against him, and it's just like, oh my God. That she stoops to help people. It's like, no, this is what you should do. You clear up the situation without fuss or muss, and everybody was happy at the end, except for Dick, apparently. But
I had, I'm going to have to try to prevent myself from doing this in future books, but I probably had a quarter of the book left, maybe a little bit more. And I was like, I wonder what reviews are saying. So I started reading reviews, and I totally there was a spoiler. So
yeah, don't do that.
I knew that there was sexual assault happening at some point. So I don't know. I mean, obviously it was still impactful in the story and what was happening.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Because I was kind of prepared for it, I probably wasn't as impacted if I would have been had I not known about it. But just it's so sucky. Like all of that was so sucky. Just that whole chapter where like everything that he was thinking was just like, oh, she's coming back to me. She wants to be with me. She wants to do this. And just that entitlement in every aspect that happened.
Isn't that where we spawn narcissism though? Like just the idea that they deserve everything, but I'm sorry, I'm overthinking things. I'm sorry.
I mean, like everything about that chapter though is not just, like you could remove the fact that Richard was white and just the fact that he was male, and that's enough.
Right.
Because women are so afraid of rejecting men because of that, because
the
of
response to lack of control.
Just this male entitlement. And I never realized growing up, because I would, when I was younger, I would get a lot of attention, and as I would walk around and people would be like, hey, can I get your phone number? I'd just be like, I would usually say no, and that would never make it stop. So then eventually you learn to say things like, I have a boyfriend, even when you don't. And it wasn't until many, many years later that somebody said, men have such little respect for women, they won't accept her no, but they will respect that she belongs to another man's property, essentially. And that's gross in and of itself. But then you have the people who are just like, oh, I don't care about your boyfriend either. But still, just that realization as a woman growing up, knowing that that's a thing that you have to be concerned about or fear, really sucks. And then not only does Dick violate her, but then the phone call that he made immediately after to just screw her. Screw her even more.
Yeah, it's controlling. Yeah, it's an issue of control.
So he was just, a shitty character through and through.
Well, yeah, I was surprised when she accepted the invitation to come to his place. I was like, oh no, this is not going to end well. And sure enough, because he even says, and I think after the fact, she mentions it herself, that's like, she knew kind of what she was getting into and what might happen when she went over there. Now, granted, that's not to say, that, how should I put this, that what happened was awful and it should not have happened regardless of the situation. But,
right.
She knew that, she was thinking, oh, she wants to get back together with me, even though clearly she does not. But, I don't know. It was just, I like the way she did the scene, and in the aftermath, but because it was just like, it's like, well, maybe there's, there's points on this side and then points on this side. So I don't know.
I mean, I think what is interesting that as I was reading the book, through the majority of it, Olga seemed to, while she still obviously cared, she seemed to have disassociated herself from her mom in a way that Prieto hadn't. Maybe it's my own lived experience that I was relating to there, because my brother was always so much closer to my mom than I was. And so I felt like I related to Olga, where she was like, yeah, she's my mom, but she disappeared. We don't talk. She doesn't have anything to do with me. And so Olga was just kind of doing her own thing and not, still wounded, obviously, still had trauma in relation to her mom, but not necessarily trying to have anything until that moment where her mother called her and was like, I'm proud of you. And I feel like that warped Olga. That really, I maybe just kind of released whatever she had been suppressing or holding down or trying to detach herself from. And hearing from her mother that she was like, no, fuck your brother. You're the answer. You're what we need. That really made Olga not just willing to revisit her relationship with Dick, but she was considering, can I do something with him if I need to make this deal happen?
Right.
So she was like prepared to kind of compromise herself in that way just to regain that approval of her mother, and that was just like truly heartbreaking.
Her mother would not have hesitated, I would gather, to do that, but
But it was just another manipulation tactic.
Yeah. And it's the kind of thing where, when you've been in an abusive relationship for a long time, then all of a sudden, they're being nice to you. It's like, it's like the sun is finally, shown on you, and you can't help but feel good, even though it's manipulative for the most part. So,
yeah, just to realize it was for the wrong reason.
Right.
I've only been to Puerto Rico once, but I was just trying to take in like everything and the way everything was described, and the way the hurricane was handled, and the loss of life, and just the idea that the place is more willing to be repaired and serviced, where the areas where I think they were calling them like
where the money was at, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they were calling them Puerto Rians. Like, I assumed that was like a portmanteau for Puerto Rican Europeans. I thought that was my interpretation of what was happening there. Like, basically white people in Puerto Rico is how I interpreted that. I can't imagine the struggle that Puerto Rico has been going through for so many years and continues to go through. And then to be like a Puerto Rican living in America and have people tell you go back to your own country, or just like the trash that they deal with on a regular basis, where it's like controlled by the United States but not seen as an American, and then like
because you look different. Go back to your own country. What, New Jersey?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've pretty much all said that after reading this, we want to know more about.
I definitely do want to know about Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rican history. And that promesa thing was also something that was real and happened.
Ooh.
Oh, you did hear that.
That one I heard, yeah. That one I heard.
Are we not supposed to be talking about that? What the hell?
But that acronym is impressive, as I was looking it up yesterday, because promesa means promise, and then the fact that that's an acronym for like Puerto Rican something management something. And I was like, wow, who came up with that? That was
some planning had to take place to get that to fit, but yeah.
But
when you talk about the rich and such, the book makes a point of saying, well, how did they get their money? By screwing over a hell of a lot of people, It's like, well, we're not going to sell the solar panels to the Puerto Ricans, because God forbid they should be self-sustaining. We want them dependent on us. So it's not just the having of money; it's how they acquired the money, which I think is an issue too, which results in the Robin Hood tactics. That it's okay to add a few cases on, to where they won't notice it, But,
did you see what the author did with the character of Manny and how they framed him? How they put like his character in perspective, and even though throughout the book the mom was talking about people like him pretty often, that it wasn't the actual people that we can blame. It's our people that helped them.
Yes.
We blame more.
Mm-hmm.
And that dude was just there to get food.
Mm-hmm.
Sad too.
I'm sad for how gentrification is like breaking up communities.
Mhm.
And I recently read like a thriller novel that also kind of was grounded in the idea of gentrification and how that's impacting Black neighborhoods and stuff like that. But like even my own neighborhood growing up has gotten to a point where it's like essentially unlivable because the rent has increased so much. Everybody's just priced out, being kicked out of their rent controlled apartments and stuff.
She also published a think piece on the Atlantic called "Why Do Rich People Love Quiet," and it's about the competing notions of propriety and such. How white people like quiet, white rich people like quiet, and Puerto Ricans are naturally effusive, loud people. It was an interesting piece. It came out in around the beginning of the month. So if it's not behind the paywall, you should check it out.
Okay, I will. Maybe you can link it in the Facebook chat or something. I'll check that out.
I will do that. I can do that right now. But to that point, it's the whitening of Brooklyn, I guess, in this case, right? Do I have that right? I'm not a New Yorker, obviously, so.
I mean, that's what was happening in my neighborhood. It's been a few years since I've been back home, so I can only say from what I remember.
Yeah, that was also again to mention our project in the new West Side Story. They were talking about gentrification as well. That was an issue as well. The new Irish bar, that sort of a thing.
Is that you said the new West Side Story? Is it a show or is it a movie?
It's a movie. Steven Spielberg directed it.
Okay, all right. Because we were just talking last night about that.
With more ethnically appropriate cast members, let's put it that way. So.
Okay, we may watch the original, then watch the newer one.
That's what I did. I watched one right after. They're both good, but I don't know. I think the original has a style and an energy that the remake doesn't. But maybe because it's new. I don't know. But
I'll check it out. I don't know if I have anything else to add. Unless you guys do, or you want to do final thoughts.
Let's start off with me again.
We can start with Tom.
Oh, okay. Hang on, I have to find my reading. I enjoyed the book.
Oh, were you really? He said I was ready.
Oh, this out. No, gosh, what did I do? Read? No, 4 stars. Okay, yeah, it's a book I would not have read otherwise, and I'm glad I read it. So, and again, it's the kind of thing. Like I said, if I'd known the history, I would have appreciated it a lot more. But as it was, being ignorant white dude, I learned something. Which is not the point of the book, obviously, but it's something.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I'm less ignorant than I was. Let's put it that way, which is always a good thing.
Right.
But see, now we have the problem was I had said the exact same thing Tom had. He would be the one saying right now, same. But
sorry for stealing it.
So I have 4 stars for me. It's just, and it made me want to learn more, and it surprised me in a couple spots, but it's for me it was I saw a lot of it. It seemed like a very what's the word I'm looking for, templated type story. Like I've seen that the rebel and the family story, but I'll worry about all that later.
Like a trope, you mean?
That.
Okay.
Sure.
Before I jump into my final thoughts, I'm curious, did either of you at any point, because there's a significant amount of Spanish in this, I felt like, and did you just read that and keep going? Did you use context clues and keep going? Did you ever stop to look up what the things they were saying meant? Just out of curiosity.
I looked up a couple things when I realized that
Curses.
I didn't know what they.
I'm kidding. You looked up a couple things. Go ahead.
But out of context, I was able to use most of it without having to worry about looking anything up. But I just wanted to note the black bandanas and everything else, some of that stuff, and some of the things that she had said. I didn't really have to translate much. I knew majority of it, but yeah.
Yeah, most of the phrases were short, and like you said, you could gather them from contextual clues. And I figured if she really wanted you to know something, she would have spelled it out.
Right. I think that was one of the things I meant to say was the author did a good job of using context clues to help explain certain things.
Mm.
So.
I know in like previous books that I've read where it does include Spanish, I get irritated when, and I know why it's done. I get it. It's to, appeal to a larger audience and to explain more. But I hate it when they say something in Spanish and literally say the same exact thing in English right after that. Like, that's just like, it's just frustrating because nobody speaks like that.
And honestly, that made me feel glad because I know this book is not written for me. And it's like, yay, well done.
Right. Well, I also because I'm around more progressive people, I guess, but I always have the pity that when they say something in Spanish, they'll turn around and then say it in English for you gringos. So they make a joke about it. But
I don't. Go ahead. No, this is a very minor spoiler for the newest Spider-Man movie. They play with that notion of Spanish in the movie for a very short scene. So, anyway, carry on. Yeah, you know what you mean? What?
Something that we didn't touch on too much, but that I really appreciated was just the overall family dynamic throughout the whole book. Whether it be between Olga and her brother or her cousins, or like, I loved the scene where they were over her cousin's house because they were making favors for the wedding or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there was actually a part in there that specifically made me cry only because I related to it so much. And it was in relation to what they were saying about what Latinx culture does with wedding favors and how we keep them literally indefinitely, and that they're kept in the china cabinet. And growing up, we had so many wedding favors in the china cabinet that like probably like once a year I would go in there and I would get curious and I would be like, whose wedding was this from? And I would see like the names and the dates, and sometimes people weren't still married, but like just kind of I just loved going through those and seeing them and knowing that our family cared about them enough to hold on to them for so many years later. And so that specific scene in the book made me cry.
And she also mentions about, being a wedding planner. She knows how, the white people like prefer this minimal elegance. And, there's one part of the scene, I forget what they were doing, but it's like, no, it's not enough. It's not glitzy enough. It's not ornamental enough. You need more. And it's like, okay. So it's just a different aesthetic.
It is. It's just a different vibe, different thing. But, I don't think it's a surprise that I'm giving it 5 stars. The family, the humor, the love letter to Brooklyn, just everything really, really resonated with me. And I think I loved it so much more than I had initially been expecting that I would. And I thought it was great. And I kind of look forward to reading more by this author. So that's where I'm at on that. This month, what we are reading, so this is for August, and I have it here, is Far Sector, and it is
N.K. Jemisin.
By N.K. Jemisin, with art by Jamal Campbell.
Yes.
I was unaware
John didn't
into
know.
A Green Lantern story.
You were also unaware that it was a graphic novel when you voted for it, right?
I mean,
it's a good story.
One's kind of a subcategory of the other, so yeah.
So this is going to be.
I just reread it again. All right, yeah, good time.
This is going to be. I don't really know too much about what this is about. Do you want to provide a synopsis? A very brief
Jemison, I am a lifelong Green Lantern fan. And Jemison gives us something new in the Green Lantern universe, which is like, oh my God, this is really good. And the way I know, and I'm being purposely vague, so I don't give anything away. But it's about a new Green Lantern who gets a new sort of ring and is assigned to Far Sector, which is like out on the edge of the galaxy. So it's like the wild, wild west. She's the law out there. And the story unfolds from there.
All right, cool. This is going to be interesting since John mostly takes in his...
I have to use my eye.
He's going to have to use his eyes instead of his ears.
Sorry.
So I don't know if you want to... How you want to split it up? Yeah, do I guess I could read it to you.
So you can't read. You're gonna describe each scene too? No, I have to read it. It's ridiculous.
No, the art is really, really good. It's like kind of like a pastel-y.
I do like comics when I actually don't fall asleep, so we'll be all right.
All right, we'll figure it out.
I'll make it. I'll be okay.
So yeah, we will be discussing that in a few weeks. And if you're still here, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed Olga Dies Dreaming as much as we did. And as a final reminder, if you ever want to join us on screen during our chats, you can do that by becoming a book club VIP member at patreon.com/Libri Labra. And even if you're not ready to become a patron, you can go check it out and see what kind of perks are available in the different tiers. So thanks again, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hi guys.